Hello and welcome to Butter Movies. Good news, folks. Joe's still with us. And then some. Just when it seemed our girl was staring down a permanent sunset, she's alive and literally kicking the shit out of hospital staff in a blind rage. Turns out the shrapnel in her side was a piece of her cell phone, lacerating an artery that could take her out again real quick if she doesn't take it easy for at least the next week. All I'll say is that the devil's showing faces, the doctor tells her. Think it through before you play your hand. Love when Sheridan gets a little cowboy lyric in via some side character you'll never see again. Anyway, Joe's response to this omen is about as cautious as you'd expect, and it bodes ill for the rest of the Lioness crew, who find themselves in a sinister game of international speed poker with no option but to play the cards you've got against the devil's aces. The season's penultimate episode opens with a heavy stew of a monologue from Mullins, who shows up at Byron's house for a quick rundown of the situation at hand, a little too conspicuously for the audience's sake, but it certainly helps in the season's final innings. As the situation stands, they think the suicide bomber at the border was a proxy at the behest of Chinese intelligence and served two purposes: 1, to continue destabilizing the border to influence the election, and 2, to shift U.S. intelligence focus stateside to obfuscate the two Chinese nuclear scientists stationed in Turkey, with plans to transport into Tehran soon. Mullins clears the runway for his monologue with the age-old question, "Where were you on the 9th of November?" Then he proceeds with a cross-section of spitting straight facts and spewing garbage anyone who watches this show will come to expect, regardless of political leanings. According to Mullins, George W. Bush, never named in the show, but essentially referenced as the 43rd president who kinda stole the election, answered America's call to rise as a true. The big plot twist in Lioness Season 2, Episode 6 is that Joe was shot during the rescue mission, and so audiences end the hour not knowing if she will live or die. The only clue to her status is that she had to be resuscitated on the way to the hospital. Naturally, fans will wonder if Joe is being killed off either because Zoe Saldana is leaving Lioness or Taylor Sheridan wants to shake up the cast again. There is definitely cause for concern. Sheridan is not afraid to kill characters off, sometimes in a matter of moments. Tulsa King Season 2, Episode 9, Triad got rid of that show's main villain in less time than it takes to make a sandwich. And the premise of Lioness is such that it can continue with different cast members. Yet the reality is that while the show can move forward without Saldana, it really shouldn't. For all Joe's abrasiveness as a character, the MCU and Star Trek alum is the best actor in the series. Even in a cast that includes Morgan Freeman and Nicole Kidman, Saldana gets the bulk of the screen time in Lioness and she throws herself into the role. The only other character who could match Joe's level of energy as a possible new team leader would be Cruz, as Laisla de Oliveira has her own fiery screen presence, but Cruz doesn't have the credentials for that. The one character who does would be Kyle Sanford, yet on a show called Lioness, having a man take over would be counterintuitive. Joe being in surgery definitely raises the audience's heart rate a bit, but her being shot feels like it comes out of the blue just for shock value. With both those things in mind, it doesn't seem like a wise idea for the writers to kill off the character. Saldana means too much to the series for Joe's last scene to be a medevac helicopter flying away. And without Joe, Lioness loses its leader plus the whole subplot about her family, and it becomes just another military drama. Lioness Season 2, Episode 6, 2381 is the episode that brings the Paramount Plus show to a tipping point. It's the one that throws all the cards on the table, including another potential cast change. However, it's also the episode that most highlights the pacing issue that Season 2 has dealt with from the start. Is almost entirely focused on cleaning up the damage after the cliffhanger that ended Lioness Season 2, Episode 5, Shatter the Moon. People count their losses, yell at one another over who's responsible, and decide what to do next. There's a big reveal about DEA Agent Gutierrez that keeps the tension level high, but mostly this episode feels like clearing the deck so that the series can do something with the last two installments of the season. The return of Cruz Manuelos has proven to be the best part of Lioness. Since her reappearance in Season 2, Episode 4, 500 Children, Cruz has been at the center of some of the most memorable scenes and helped to push the story arc forward in new and interesting ways. She's challenged Joe and been instrumental in helping her replacement Josie Carrillo. In Episode 6, Cruz intervenes when Josie's father Pablo Carrillo assaults her after learning why Josie is at his home. Her sweeping in and holding Pablo at gunpoint is a memorable moment not just for her, but in that it's the kicker of a sequence in which the whole team takes over the place. This very violent turn of events includes killing Pablo's security team and finding out that his maid Atsi is wearing a wire. Under pressure from two cops, Atsi reveals that she's working for Gutierrez. This is a not entirely unexpected plot twist that gives everyone something else to do. It does, however, stall the Carrillo storyline in its tracks. Episode 6 ends with Pablo and Josie just staring at one another from across a room. The whole momentum in this part of the story comes from Cruz taking charge, whether it's physically or giving Josie important advice. It's enough to make audiences wonder why Season 2 didn't just come up with some reason to keep Cruz as its lioness. The character may not have wanted to come back into the program, but she's certainly proving her value over again. And the same goes for actor Laisla de Oliveira, who slid right back in as if she never left. Shatter the Moon includes the long-awaited scene in which Josie makes contact with her family, or not her uncle, but her mother and father. It's the part audiences have been thinking about since the Lioness Season 2 premiere, and the reason it works is Cruz being there. Her calming Josie down before they arrive and her reactions to what gets said at the dinner table are memorable moments that also remind audiences that it isn't easy or even fun to be a lioness. From the season premiere, the character of Jo has been incredibly aggressive in knowing what she wants and expecting to get it, without much care for anyone else's situation or their feelings. The scenes involving Jo's children and her husband Neil have been the only ones to prove that Jo is capable of warmth and compassion. In Season 2, Episode 5, that changes because Jo is one of the people most affected by seeing the endangered children. Zoe Saldana has a great scene in which Jo, struggling with a few tears, calls back to CIA headquarters and argues that they should be allowed to rescue the kids. This prompts a brief, but intense argument with her boss. It's really nice to see the vulnerable side of Jo make its way into the military side of Lioness Season 2's narrative, because it gives Saldana more to do than yell at people and dish out orders, although she does her biggest amount of yelling at the beginning of the episode when Jo is enraged about what's just happened. But from a character standpoint, it makes her far more interesting. There have been times where she's been frustrating to watch, particularly in the premiere and in Season 2, Episode 3, Along Came a Spider. This is a show who has more to offer plot-wise. Jo's scenes with Cruz are especially fun because the two interact with one another as colleagues, no longer in a boss-employee relationship. It's Cruz who comes up with the idea of offering Josie's father a deal and gets Zoe on board with doing so, although based on Josie's reaction to the slurs he utters during his dinner table monologue, she may no longer think her father is worth saving. But that's Cruz's idea, and she has some good advice for both Josie and Jo. And Jo's willingness to listen to her is that more human side of the character. But how long will that last? For a show with plenty of military drama, Lioness has been fairly slow-paced. Just as in Episode 4, there's more screen time devoted to the planning and discussion around a mission than the actual execution. It's not until the final 10 minutes or so of Shatter the Moon that fans are finally able to see the rescue operation that's been talked about the whole time. Fans of military TV shows will find this boring, particularly since the need for the mission to be a night strike also means that the audience can't see anything for periods of time. Viewers have to rely on what they can hear, and the regular cuts back to Tucker's perspective. And just like in Episode 4, Sheridan relies on a last-moment plot twist to get viewers coming back again. This time, it's the revelation of a suicide bomber who blows himself up to stop the team's assault on the smugglers, presumably killing quite a few people. It's so shocking that it feels almost too random. But it's indicative of the big problem in this episode, and Lioness Season 2 as a whole. The show spent the entire first half of its season planning to infiltrate the Los Tigres cartel. Josie literally just gets in the door of her home in Episode 5. With only 3 episodes left, how is Sheridan going to play out an entire operation in a way that satisfies viewers? Or is he not going to, and the story will pull the audience in another direction, which might be exciting but will make viewers feel like they didn't need to spend all that time watching Josie prepare for something that didn't happen? Episode 5 gets to the point Lioness needed to hit, but it's the performances by the actors, not the plot, that carries the hour. The satisfaction comes from watching what its 3 stars do and how they give their characters more color. Sheridan will have to step up the action if he wants to deliver an explosive finale, because right now the best action Lioness Season 2, Episode 5, Shatter the Moon, belongs entirely to a character from Season 1. The return of Laisla de Oliveira as Cruz Manuelos continues to pay dividends for the Paramount Plus show, as Cruz's presence overshadows almost everything else in the episode. And with just a few more left to, the series is finally getting to the mission that it talked about in the first place, but is it coming too late? Shatter the Moon is primarily about the characters reacting to the child trafficking that they saw at the end of Season 2, Episode 4, 500 Children. But a part of the episode is devoted to Captain Josie Carrillo making contact with her family and starting the operation she was hired for. It's Cruz's presence as a foil to both Josie and Joe that makes Episode 5 work, yet the clock is constantly ticking. Taylor Sheridan could have used the return of Cruz as simply a shock moment for Lioness, something to reel in the fans who watched Season 1. But from the moment that Joe and Cruz first reconnected in Episode